welcome to Redefining ABCD. All right, you can start, Sneha.
So today for Brown Art Network, the focus of our conversation will be how race, culture, and a family's generation of musicians can shape a musical identity slash techniques. So joining us in on our conversation is Anirudh Rajagopalan, who is an Indian Japanese American music composer, director, and performer who strives to push the boundaries of different musical genres by combining various genres such as Bollywood, Carnatic fusion, Hindustani, German, and French contemporary pop, folk music, and Portuguese fado into unique productions. He also in the production phase of composing his first film score with a documentary focusing on the rivers of India that will be released next year in 2023. So, hi Anirudh, welcome.
Thank you. Nice to see you both after a very long time.
Yes.
Yeah.
So before we dive into our central topic for today, can you tell us a little bit about your background as a musician?
Yeah, I'm an aspiring musical artist, having trained mostly in both Carnatic music and Western orchestra. Currently, I describe myself as a music composer, director, producer, a singer, songwriter, and performer. So I come from a family of musical celebrities in Madras, also known as Chennai today, which is in southern India, Tamil Nadu. My family has musicians who have worked with some of India's foremost musicians, such as Harris Jayaraj, Ilayaraja, and most recently A.R. Rahman. My mother's a Carnatic vocalist and Veena player who has trained me in Carnatic music for over 10 years and still going. And I trained myself in Western orchestra for 10 years through grade school, through high school orchestra and college. Along this journey, I found an interest in several other genres of music from Europe, such as German, French, and Portuguese music. And my vision is to bring certain elements of all these genres together, as I believe that musical worlds do not have to be kept separate in today's increasingly diverse world and communities that are embracing the idea of diversity much more.
That's really cool, and I think that you're totally right. Like in a world that we are in today, blending different music and backgrounds and cultures is really important for unique sound, and it's really cool that you're embracing that in your vision. And going more towards the topic today, what drew you to like founding your own music production company and kind of kicking off your career as a musician with that, like, and how you got the idea to mix musical genres that you kind of listed or introduced us today to create your sound.
Yeah, so I wouldn't call it a company just yet. It's not like I have like a huge team of people that I pay or anything. It's really just my banner right now as really just my platform for working on several musical projects. What drew me to found this was my passion for composing, creating something new, and I'm currently exploring more programs to work with. They always say art nourishes the soul, and after a decade of musical training, I wanted to explore about how I could take these skills to a new level. So in college, I explored composing and improvising tunes on a piano in my dorm. At that time, I had no studio, and I couldn't afford even a studio. Um, because I had to pay for my college education, classes and all other funds had to come along. So I used whatever resources I had available and just tried to make the most out of it. So I really just used my iPhone at the time and tried to make the best of it. So my first couple of albums, yes, they're nowhere near professional, but I still keep them on my artist pages today because that's really how I truly started out because I didn't want like all my efforts that I did try while I was in college to like not be like on platforms because I really want to show people like where I actually started from, like where my journey actually began. So soon after graduating, I was able to pay to use an online program, and I soon learned the ropes to be able to crank out more songs that now sound much better, more professional, and all this under my banner. So as an example, I have two professional sounding albums out now on all major streaming platforms, and I have a new single coming out this week actually. First one in yeah, first new work in 6 months actually. So yeah, my idea of mixing musical genres together has been influenced by multiple events and aspects of my life. So I've been to India like tons of times where I was able to interact with my extended family. And I've also been to several other places in the US and in France where I was able to hear loudspeakers somewhere playing different cultures of music. In addition, I see most of our friends like enjoying music from several other cultures, and what really struck a chord in me was how so many diverse people come together and sing or dance along to a song they really like. Some examples out there are, BTS, um, songs like Despacito. Yeah, there's so many examples out there. I feel that music is just this, wonderful universe and a vehicle to bring people together in such a in a society where we still see so much division today. And I feel that music really helps um again nourish the soul and translate my vision, and translating this vision into music is what has created a new sound. We've been seeing this especially in the 21st century, especially during this pandemic.
No, that's awesome. And I kind of like going back on the idea of like I like that you're like still keeping your original music, like the stuff that you kind of produced without the, the money and the professional like studio and all that stuff. I appreciate that you still keep that on your platform because I think you're right, it is very important to highlight and show, your journey as opposed to cutting stuff off or, you're showing the whole story. And I think that's really great. Kind of going into that a little bit, your music is very tailored because it is like mixed genre, mixed musical pieces. I feel like there are a lot of cultures that you're kind of balancing within the music. Does your identity as an Indian Japanese American artist reflect or correspond with the meanings and themes that are reflected in your music? And then inversely, in what ways have you discovered your own identity through the process of putting together your pieces?
So my identity as an Indian Japanese American definitely does correspond with my themes, and because I was influenced equally by both cultures and both genres of both countries, like their musical traditions have been influenced by outside by other countries. Japan Japanese music has been influenced by Chinese and Korean music for centuries, and Indian music has a very long and rich heritage. And today, it's definitely influenced by tons of other genres from outside, such as electronic, rock, etc. As a much younger person, being born and raised in Japan, I was exposed to Japanese music in my metropolitan home, and later on, when I visited India, I began to imagine how similarities between these two genres could actually work, and that was really just the beginning. So this idea was in my mind for a number of years, and um, in college, like I saw so many people like really extending beyond like where they currently were, and they were really taking their work and passions to the next level. In college, at Ohio State, there were a lot of people, a lot of nice teams and groups out there that really come together to try and really push the boundaries of what they initially believed was possible. Um, s- so as I put more musical pieces together, as I was studying at university, I soon started to learn that all my ideas are all based on how to combine different genres in more creative ways. Like it happened initially it wasn't like a plan or anything. It just happened rather like unknowingly. Like when I composed my first musical pieces, I was like, wow. And so in my latest album, I combine basic musical ideas. So with my own ideas and projects like these have further fueled my energy and passion.
That's it's a really good take on it. It's cool that you were able to reflect on your experience in college to see how other people were kind of embracing their identity to help kind of shape your own identity as well as you're growing and experiencing new things. And I think, like you said, I guess your passion for understanding like technical like music is definitely a good way to facilitate that. And so it's really great that you're able to kind of see that and it helped influence your work. Um, I know you're so for background for the listeners, Anirudh, Sneha, and I we grew up in the same community back home, and we're all also Tamil. So we're also not only in like the Indian community back home we grew up together, we also are in the Tamil community. And like fun fact, like I tried Carnatic music lessons with Anirudh's mom. Like auntie helped me get exposed to that. So we're very like we grew up together, and it's really well known. Like Anirudh's family and himself are really well known for being talented musicians. And so I guess with that, Anirudh, your family with their background in music and like with your extended family's influence in music, has how has that exposure like impacted your work or informed your work? And is there anyone in your family you would particularly like, or anyone even in your like support system you'd like to like shout out that has maybe helped you discover or like was it part of a hand in your musical voice or identity?
Um, so when I was living in Mason, Ohio, so I've been living in Mason, Ohio for like 15 years, and then before that, Japan for 7 years, and I just moved to Raleigh, North Carolina for a job. So yeah, back in home, my parents would play music like whenever the mood struck. So my mom would play like all these like Carnatic music at cherries, and like as she was making food, or even as background music in the home, like she would just play it on her iPhone or laptop, and then she would go along and she would go about her day. And then my dad, he would listen to same same Carnatic music, but he would also listen to Hindustani music, and um, talented musicians such as Zakir Hussain, ghazals, people like Jagjit Singh. He's actually my favorite ghazal artist. Yeah, I would like to thank so many people in my life who have helped shape my musical identity. First off, I would like to thank my father, Vijay, and my mother, Malati, for exposing me to music, especially Hindustani and Carnatic music, respectively. Even if they didn't just like sit down and sit and train me for like 1 hour and that's all. Like it just like that kind of exposure happened like as we were walking around the house. Like it wasn't like a formal training or anything like that. For the most part, well, in recent years that's the case, and my mom used to train me formally, but in recent years as I grew up, it just became more of like just listening to it as a pastime or even as background music, especially as I'm continuing to advance in Mridangam, and be able to continue playing for Kacheris, hopefully here in North Carolina, because yeah, Ohio is because I don't live in Ohio anymore. So my mother runs the best Carnatic music school ever, and through all the ups and downs, she has never given up on her passion. Even after 10 years, she's still going at it. She's been teaching generation after generation of people, and suddenly, like you see all these kids, grown up and moving out of the house to college. But yeah, her energy, incredible support and love has inspired me and my younger brother. The same goes for both my Mridangam gurus, Dr. Vasudeva Nambudiri and Sri Tutursi Narendran, for training me so well in Mridangam and never giving up on me. Yeah, my whole family back in India has also been a constant source of inspiration and support, and they fill my world with so much love. And definitely my friends in college who co-founded Bakai Bhairavi with me, which is Ohio State University's first Carnatic music group. As they never stopped believing in me as well. And also all the people that I've had the opportunity to play with in so many cool places. Every single concert and gig I've done is has been a blessing.
That's awesome, and that's really great that you've been able to find that community of people that you really enjoy, like that you really relate and connect to, and who are also just as passionate about Carnatic music, and kind of developing your style and your taste through that community. I think that's really important. But I was also curious, on the other hand, because like, all these people have been so supportive and happy for you. Was there at any point, especially maybe in the very beginning of when you were, putting together your music, or you just kind of threw out the idea, or was there any like tough conversations that you had to have with peers or family regarding the idea of, developing your own production company? Or, How did the people around you react to it initially in the very beginning? And how did you navigate these conversations?
So I haven't actually received any pushback about this from my family in particular. Well, initially there comes that feeling like, oh, this is something new, so are you sure this is gonna work? Yeah, that conversation is
Right.
absolutely normal. Like it's not uncommon.
Right.
I
Mhm.
think the pushback really comes from the like the larger community that accepts current traditions and genres as those that seem rigid, and they set this idea like a rule or law that has been written down somewhere that we keep the tradition as it is. So it's really about tradition. Tradition really impacts our expectations of what a genre of music is, and how it is interpreted today. And certain practices have withstood the test of times. And these certain practices that have withstood the test of time, I believe, they've come to define what we set as expectations in what a musical genre is and how it can be presented. So, a couple examples. Carnatic music has a very long and rich history, a wonderful history. But a growing number of people in today's diverse world think there is still a way to respect a tradition while introducing something new to it. Carnatic music has had new innovations introduced to it, such as mandolin, and any of my Mridangam jatis that I play, they stick to their roots, my teacher's methods in this case. And I've been introducing Mridangam to a wider range of people here in the Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill area where I live. The one thing I always do is to make sure that my jatis are exactly what my teachers taught, since that is our tradition in a way. Um, and another example, in Germany, the musical landscape has changed over the decades and centuries because of Germany's some history. Through World War One, World War Two, the Reconstruction after World War Two. Yes, certain ideas have risen and fallen, but those that have stood the test of time are what have become tradition. The country's reunification more than 30 years ago has really influenced its musical landscape because a lot of the contemporary genres that we see in today's modern day Germany were introduced because of how Germany's societal norms changed. So today there's an expanding landscape of different genres of music influenced by various movements. And all of these genres have collectively defined, in a way, the country's directions. So how societal norms change over time, I believe, really influences what musical genres thrive, and that's what really impacts like the conversations people have about, or the debates people have about introducing something new, or even um, making influence on a tradition.
Yeah, you're totally right. We actually also talked something similar to this in another, like a past episode with Rizwan, who is a violist who has a similar background to you as well, who has classical training, but is bringing like a fusion aspect to his classical training. And I think he resonated with he said something similar to you as well. And I think you guys are both right. In an age where we're like modernizing so quickly with technology and stuff like that, all these older, not older, but more traditional classical forms, to in order to keep them sustainable, they need to evolve in some sort of way. But like you said, stick to the roots. So that's really, I guess that's really important. It's glad that you're able to kind of showcase that with your training and with your passion to keep the original traditions going. In terms of kind of growing as a musician yourself, what kind of styles or techniques have you discovered when you first started developing your own music? And is there areas that you kind of want to explore as you continue to grow as a composer or writer and with all your future works kind of going forward?
Yeah, right now it's so right now I do everything from start to finish, but I'm actively searching to eventually form a team of people who I can work with on many fronts. So specific aspects, uh, in terms of technique, I often try to alternate common tunes and expand on them. And I also explore the idea of changing scales in music as long as they are, related to one another and easily transitionable to the ear. Um, and as for style, with most of my more recent works, I've been following the structure of let's see, intro, main chorus, two separate verses, and then main chorus and then ending. It's pretty common in Bollywood, especially. So in addition, I stick to common chord structures for now. So if I play something in, let's say, D major, I can sometimes change to G major somewhere and then soon transition back to D major. So yeah, but I'm working on expanding my imagination much more, but that only comes with trial and error, repeated practice, and definitely motivation. So instrument wise, I write for like an orchestral fusion ensembles currently. So some of my works can have other instruments along with the four main string instruments that when we used to play in high school, violin, viola, cello, and bass.
That's cool, and I do appreciate I it's kind of it's interesting how you talk about like composing music in terms of like there's a structure of it, there's a style, and like how what major like that kind of how to jump from one major to the other as as the song transitions through the music, and it's really cool how you talk about that, and it's exciting to see it's exciting to see where you will go with it in the future. And we mentioned before you've been working on this. You're composing your first film score for the documentary focusing on the rivers of India. And I'm always fascinated by this correlation between film and music, and how one can inform the other. Do you see? Has this like been kind of a challenge for you when composing? Like trying to like make the music make sense with the documentary, or has having the context of the documentary making the music come together more easily?
So since it's my very first film score, I would say that it's easy for anyone like a new guy to think that it's an easy thing to do because we hear film scores all the time, the kinds of movies we watch, we hear it, or even in TV serials, video games, like almost any form of media. What's a movie, without a soundtrack and background music to match? So as a beginner at this, I came to realize that I cannot do an entire film score alone. And as I saw like how the documentary was going along, I was like, oh no, help me. So 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 I'm currently reaching out to more experienced people around, and I hope we can all come together and help each other learn and grow throughout this. That's the best way to learn. Music is a collaborative effort across all levels. And that's why we have bands and you know s- artists that perform alone on stage. They have a whole team behind them, like including not just managers but also people who do the sound engineering, people who probably advise them on lyrics or something like that. So yeah, there are so many talented musicians in the Raleigh Durham Chapel Hill area, and it makes me very optimistic to work with all of these wonderful people very soon. It's just not easy like to instantly find them. It takes like a lot of time to eventually come across someone or a group of people who would be willing to commit to like a long-term partnership, not just a one-time thing, but a long-term partnership. So I see the interaction of this film and the music we are going to compose as an exciting new challenge because it encourages us to think well outside the box, throw out old assumptions and challenge the conventions that we've been practicing for a number of years now. So having the context of the documentary helps us to go in the right direction of what kind of music we can decide to compose. So the goal is to see like how the film and the music can influence each other and be a seemingly perfect marriage of art. Currently, the story is being developed and they're filming right now in India as we're speaking. So yeah, once we see the story and the film, we can score it with the guided direction.
That's really cool. Out of curiosity, I think with your first exposure in this space or in this realm of applying music, do you see yourself kind of growing more in this area as like a career goal for yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. I have a musical career in my heart as well as my day-to-day job.
Awesome. Yeah, and kind of going back to, I know the theme of this episode is about the concept of mixing musical genres and how that's kind of impacted from based on your journey as a musician. But kind of going back to the conversation we had a little earlier of any obstacles or like pushbacks you might have faced in the past. In general, I guess with the concept of mixing multiple genres together or bringing a unique sound from a traditional background, have you had any pushback or obstacles when you initially tried to introduce that sound as like your identity with anybody outside of your family can also like, and how did you kind of navigate going through those obstacles or people who might have been those obstacles?
So obstacle wise, in terms of being able to show it to people, I mean, when I started, we already had, Apple Music, we had Spotify, we had artists, artists can just submit their own work through all these distribution platforms. So the platform was already pretty much set. So now it just depends on what you want to put out there. Yeah, it's I feel that like if you're really like passionate about something like in terms of music, just put it out there and see how it plays out. All of these artists that have like billions of streams a day and millions of followers, they just happen to be yeah, they're just artists as well. Like yeah, they're incredibly talented. And the level that they are on is absolutely incredible. But there's so many other artists out there that don't get as many streams at all. But I feel like if you're just doing something like this for just the numbers and trying to get like as many streams as you can, I think you're in it for like all the wrong reasons. Um, because not everyone's gonna appreciate the same kind of genre, and not every artist is gonna have the same like audience of people. Um, Again, it's all based off of people's preferences. So my attitude towards my attitude wasn't didn't really have any obstacles at. So my attitude was like just put out there, just see what happens. And I was like, I'm sure my people from my scholars program, people from back home in Mason, I think they might like it. Um, and it turns out that I was right in some way, even though I'm not like a big giant artist or anything like that. I'm not like super super famous. I I still feel I still feel happy that I actually took the step, because like, if I never took the step, I wouldn't know what I would have gotten. Um, and there are a lot of like artists around our age from Mason who are putting a lot of like good work out there. So Shavia Kamaraju is actually one of my inspirations. Like she has an incredible platform full of all these really cool beats that she's doing. Want to give a quick shout out to Shravya for her inspiration and also some of the advice that she's given me over the years. Um, yeah, Soumya Vitla is also a really good artist. I think she has a couple singles right now on Spotify, and she's working really hard at what she loves, and I'm really proud of like the work she's done and how far she's come. She was also a student of my mom's as well, um so yeah, we have that connection as well. Um, yeah, for obstacles, I think the main obstacle is really just one person's attitude, like what you think society is going to give you, what you think society is going to judge you as. I think judgment of society, judgment of like external expectations is the real obstacle here.
No, I can say I think I can definitely like relate to that, especially I understand like that's like a really I think the attitude and how you approach something just in general all across the board really does dictate you know what is produced and how it's produced, and it does um it's very important to keep a good attitude and keep a good um, frame of mind when producing things, and making sure that you're doing it for the right reasons. So I think you brought up a good point. This could also like double as kind of advice to anyone, any listeners who want to pursue something that would be deemed unacceptable or whatever. Just do it. I think
Hmm.
that's like really good advice. And I guess like flipping gears a little bit. Well, maybe not. But you told us before that you've been expanding your work to professional orchestras around the Raleigh area because you live in North Carolina now. How is that? How has that been going for you? Can you tell us a little bit about um, how you've been working with these professional orchestras in North Carolina?
Yeah, so yeah, Raleigh has well, we have the Durham Symphony Orchestra that's based in Durham, North Carolina, which is like 30 minutes away from here. Yeah, my most recent performance was with the Durham Symphony Orchestra, or DSO. It had a traditional orchestra. It has a traditional orchestra composed of violins, violas, cellos, and basses, so the four big pillars. But it also, when I performed, it also had a saxophonist, and he and I, like, we came across each other like on Facebook, and he had an orchestral piece reflecting his experiences walking on the streets of India and the sounds he heard. And both of us believe that Mridangam could make a strong positive impact on the overall piece. And what was so new this time to me was that I was used to playing for Carnatic music concerts then, but now it was like, going back to high school in a way, because the last time I performed in a high school Western orchestra was back in freshman year, which was like almost 10 years ago right now. It's crazy,
That's
how
wild.
it's crazy
Wow,
like
we're
That's
old.
crazy.
how this decade actually flew
Ooh.
by, through college.
Yeah, you're
Wow.
so right.
Has it really been 9 years? Jesus Christ. I mean, that's crazy. Anyways, continue.
Yeah.
Sorry. Um,
so So yeah, what was so new to me this time was that, like, it felt like going back, and performing just like in freshman year of high school, freshman orchestra, those the winter concert, spring concert, that culture. So while everyone else had sheet music, I had no set notes or anything. Like, I literally improvised all throughout the performance. So yeah,
Wow.
yeah, we had practice sessions and all that, but I was playing different jatis like the whole time, as long as they fit the vibe of the orchestral piece that this guy had. And so, but the reality was I could just play the jatis I felt fit and what just came to my mind right there, and the result was so moving and new according to other members of the symphony. And yeah, hopefully, I look forward to continuing my work with them and expanding on this idea of combining musical identities together. I hope that one day that I that we can all come together. Maybe like I could submit one of my own pieces to them, which I have a few maybe in the near future. I hope that maybe an actual orchestra could play my one of my works.
That's amazing. Yeah, that'd be really cool to watch. I can't wait to hear about that in the near future. And that's
Yeah.
also a great segue into our next question. Like you're on par. So I guess in terms of AR productions, where do you hope to see this go in the future, and what are, I guess, your dreams and aspirations that you want to do with your company, and how you want it to evolve?
Yeah, so I'd like to expand my work to like to other people, other communities, not just in person, but also online. Especially with this pandemic, a lot of stuff has been happening online. I'm currently redesigning my website and online platforms from the ground up, so a fresh new look. Yeah, my current website is still up there, like it's still very informative. Just wanted, like, change the template, kind of change the look of it for 2022. So yeah, for 2022, I look forward to hopefully making my first music video and composing the score for the documentary I mentioned earlier. So I take each gig one at a time right now. So I try not to think too far forward about the future, because they say, never take a single moment in life for granted. Just enjoy the moment, take each step as it goes. You'll get there one day. Don't rush forward just because someone else is already there, because no
Mhm.
matter how far you go, there's always going to be someone who's much further than you.
Right.
That
Right.
race is never going to end.
Yeah. Well said.
This is very exciting. We're very excited to see the future of AR productions. And, just like as a last sort of question, what like advice would you give to listeners who are looking to have a career in the classical music world, but still want to be unique with their identity? Or just any advice in general, any lasting thoughts that you would like to share?
Yeah, as we all grow up, through our teenage years, our early 20s, one thing I would advise, I'm 23 now. I'm going to be 24 later this year. So I would say, don't think about fitting in. Like, think about standing out. That's how so many musicians, especially greats we know today have been so successful. In the land that is now that is now modern day Germany and Austria. We had music. There were musicians like Mozart, Beethoven. Um, they came in and they basically stood out in a way because they wanted to do something new. They came in and challenged the conventions of music back then, and that is why we call them greats. That is why they were so successful in their days, and that is why though their music is still listened to even centuries later after they've left this world. They stood out because they did something different. And as Lily Singh says in her book How to Be a Boss, which is a fantastic read, you have to call the shots. She advised that you got to call the shots at some time in your life. Like, you can't keep going to someone else for all the answers, because you're the person who knows yourself much more than anyone else in the world. So you have to call your shots. And I think that goes for all aspects of life, not just music. Whatever art you want to do, whatever job you want to do, whatever passion you have, you call the shots.
That's awesome. That's very great advice. Thank you, Anirudh, again for coming onto the show to talk about your growing career as a musician. Again, excited to hear about your upcoming projects. For our listeners, if you're interested in seeing some of his music or checking out his music, we'll put a link of his website in our episode description, so you can check that out. Thanks again, Anirudh, for being on the show.
Thank you, guys. And this was actually my very first podcast. So I'm really thankful that two of my friends from high school actually gave me this wonderful opportunity.
Of
Of
course,
course, we're
glad
so
to
happy.
glad to have you here. All
Yeah,
Glad
right.
to be your first episode.
Yeah, yeah.
first podcast. I was pretty nervous, so it's like, how's this
It's
gonna turn
good.
out?
Awesome.
Awesome.
Great.
I'm gonna hit cut now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So before you kind of leave us today, I wanted to give a quick shout out to Ravi Ray Audio. You might have heard that our intro and outro music is a little bit different this season and is definitely upgraded to a next level. That's all thanks to Ravi Ray, who was our last guest in season 2, and he agreed to help us out with our music for season 3. So thank you so much, Ravi Ray, for all your help. And if you guys want to get in contact with him to collaborate with any projects or work with Ravi Ray Audio, we are linking his information to the episode description, so you can reach out to him or see all the other projects he's done. And thanks again, Ravi, and we'll see you guys all in the next one.